My brother-in-law won't stop showing up when my husband's not home. I finally told him to stop, but he didn't do as such. Now the whole family's furious. Tensions exploded, secrets came out. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the quiet suburban street as I stepped out onto the porch to grab the mail. It was a typical Tuesday evening, the air crisp with the promise of fall. My eyes scanned the row of houses, looking for anything out of place. The neighbor's dog was barking, and kids could be heard playing in the distance, but other than that, everything seemed normal. Or so I thought. As I turned back to the door, a shadow fell over the welcome mat. I looked up to find Tyler, my husband Chris's older brother, standing there. His eyes met mine, and he offered a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. My heart skipped a beat. He wasn't supposed to be here. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "What brings you by?" He shrugged his shoulders, his leather jacket creaking. "Just passing through. Thought I'd see how you guys are doing." Chris was at work. I knew this because his car wasn't in the driveway. Tyler had a knack for appearing when he wasn't around. I'd mentioned it before, but Chris brushed it off, saying Tyler was just being friendly. But the way Tyler looked at me, the way he lingered, made me feel anything but at ease. Inside, the house was quiet, too quiet. The only sound was the ticking of the clock on the wall, echoing through the empty hallway as I led Tyler to the kitchen. He walked with a purpose that made me want to run. I tried to keep the conversation light, asking about his job, his life, but he was as elusive as ever. Summary to the power of 1: The narrator, feeling increasingly unsettled, encounters her brother-in-law Tyler at her doorstep during a quiet Tuesday evening. Tyler, known for his unannounced visits when her husband Chris is absent, enters the house, and despite her attempts at casual conversation, his presence brings a sense of foreboding. I could feel his gaze on me as I put the mail down and started making tea. The water boiled, and steam filled the air, adding an eerie feel to the already tense atmosphere. When I turned around, Tyler was closer than I'd realized, looking through a drawer. "What are you doing?" I asked, trying not to sound accusatory. He glanced up, his expression unchanged. "Oh, just looking for a pen," he said, his voice smooth as silk, but there was something in his tone, a hint of amusement, as if he knew he was making me uncomfortable. He found a pen and leaned against the counter, watching me as I fumbled with the tea bags. "So," he began, his eyes scanning the room. "How's everything?" I forced a smile, trying to ignore the way my skin crawled. "Fine," I said, hoping he'd take the hint and leave, but he didn't. Instead, he started asking questions about Chris and his schedule, about when he'd be home, and what we had planned for the weekend. His inquiries felt invasive, like he was trying to find out when I'd be alone again. The sound of the tea kettle whistling made me jump, and I quickly poured the hot water into the mug. The scent of chamomile filled the air, but it didn't do much to calm my nerves. As I handed Tyler his tea, our fingers brushed together, and his touch sent a cold shiver down my spine. I stepped back, creating more space between us. "So, what's really going on?" I asked, trying to sound casual as I took a sip. "Is there something you need?" Summary to the power of 1: During Tyler's unsettling visit, the narrator notices his unusually close proximity and probing questions about her husband's whereabouts and their plans, which intensify her discomfort and suspicion. She attempts to assert herself by questioning his true intentions. He took a slow sip of his tea, his eyes never leaving mine. "Just wanted to make sure you weren't lonely," he said, his voice dropping an octave. "You know, without Chris around." The way he said it made it clear he knew I was uncomfortable with his visits, and that he enjoyed it. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't about being helpful or friendly. It was about power and control. I cleared my throat, setting the mug down a little too hard. "I'm not lonely, Tyler. I have plenty to keep me busy." He nodded, his eyes trailing down my body before returning to my face. "I bet you do," he murmured. I felt my cheeks heat up, and I crossed my arms over my chest. "Look, I appreciate the concern, but I think you should go now. I've got dinner to prep." For a moment, I thought he'd argue, but then he sighed, placing his mug in the sink. "All right," he said, turning to leave, "but you know where I am if you need anything." As the door shut behind him, I leaned against the counter, my knees feeling like they might give out. I knew I had to talk to Chris about this, but I also knew it wouldn't be easy. The family dynamics were already strained, and bringing this up could break them completely. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that Tyler's visits were more than just a coincidence. The rest of the evening was spent in a blur of cooking and cleaning, my mind racing with thoughts of what Tyler could possibly want. Every time I heard a strange noise, I'd jump, my heart pounding. Was I really being paranoid, or was there something more to this? When Chris finally walked through the door, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation I'd been dreading. His smile fell when he saw my expression. "What's wrong?" he asked, setting down his briefcase. I told him everything, from the way Tyler always showed up when he wasn't around to the creepy vibe I got every time he visited. Chris's face grew serious, his eyes searching mine as I spoke. When I finished, he wrapped his arms around me, holding me tight. "You're not overreacting," he said, his voice firm. "We'll figure this out together." For the first time in what felt like weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe I wasn't crazy. Maybe Tyler's behavior was just as concerning to him as it was to me. Either way, I knew I couldn't handle this on my own anymore. I needed Chris's support, and it looked like I finally had it. But as we sat down to dinner, the quiet was shattered by the doorbell's insistent chime. My stomach clenched, and I shot Chris a pleading look. "I'll get it," he said, his voice tinged with annoyance. I heard the door open and a murmur of voices. A moment later, he was back, holding a small box. "What's this?" I asked, my curiosity piqued despite my anxiety. He frowned, turning the box over in his hands. "It's for Tyler," he said. "Some kind of delivery mistake. The guy's super nervous." The stranger at the door was indeed visibly nervous, his eyes darting around the room. He was sweating, and his hand shook as he handed Chris the package. It's really important that I give this to Tyler," he stammered. "Do you know when he'll be back?" Chris's eyes narrowed. "What's in the box?" The man glanced at me before speaking in a hushed tone. "I don't know. It's sensitive. Personal stuff. He'll know what it is." The tension in the room thickened as Chris took the package. "You can leave it with me," he said. "I'll make sure he gets it." The stranger nodded, looking relieved, and practically bolted out the door. The sound of his retreating footsteps echoed in the silence. Chris sat down at the table, setting the box in front of us. "Maybe we should open it," he said, his voice tight. "See if there's anything that explains why Tyler's been acting like this." My hand hovered over the box, hesitating. What if it's something private? Chris's jaw clenched. "If he's putting you in danger, it's not private. We need to know." With trembling hands, I lifted the lid. Inside was a set of keys and a USB drive. The keys looked familiar, but I couldn't place them. The USB had a simple label, "In case of emergency." My heart pounded in my chest. What kind of emergency required my brother-in-law to have keys to our house and a USB full of secrets? I slammed the lid shut, pushing the box away. "We can't," I whispered. "This isn't our business." But the damage was done. The package had only served to confirm what I'd feared all along. Tyler's mysterious behavior was far from innocent. And now, it had drawn us in deeper than ever. The rest of the night was a tense dance around the elephant in the room. We ate in silence, the weight of the untouched package a constant reminder of the secrets it held. After dinner, we moved into the living room, the TV playing some mindless sitcom that neither of us watched. Chris picked up the remote, his thumb hovering over the power button. "We should talk to him," he said, finally breaking the silence. "Confront him about all of this." I nodded, swallowing a lump in my throat. "But what if it's something really bad?" He took my hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "Whatever it is, we'll handle it together." The resolve in his eyes was comforting, but the knot in my stomach didn't loosen. I knew we couldn't ignore the issue any longer. We had to face Tyler and get to the bottom of this. But as we made plans to confront him, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were opening Pandora's box, and there was no way to predict what would come spilling out. The doorbell rang again, this time more insistently. We exchanged a wary glance, and Chris got up to answer it. I followed closely behind, peering over his shoulder to see Tyler on the porch, a bouquet of flowers in hand. He looked surprised to see me there. "I brought these," he said, holding out the flowers. His eyes were red-rimmed, and his voice was thick with emotion. "For you. I know I've been weird lately, and I'm sorry." I took the flowers, the scent of roses and lavender filling the room. They were beautiful, but the gesture felt forced, almost desperate. "What's going on, Tyler?" I asked, my voice shaking. He stepped inside, his shoulders slumping. "I need to show you something," he said, pulling out the USB drive. "Please, just watch this." We sat in tense silence as he plugged the USB into the TV. The screen flickered to life, and there was Tyler, looking straight into the camera. He took a deep breath and began to speak. "You guys need to know the truth before it's too late." The video played out like a confession. Tyler had been keeping tabs on me because he had stumbled upon a family secret that could ruin us all. It was about his father, their dad, and something he had done that could shake the very foundation of our marriage. My heart raced as he spoke of hidden accounts, secret meetings, and a dark past that had been meticulously buried. Chris's grip on my hand tightened as the gravity of the situation dawned on him. His knuckles turned white, and his jaw was set in a grim line. We watched in horror as the video revealed a side of our family that we never knew existed. As the video ended, Tyler looked at us, his eyes pleading. "I've been trying to protect you," he said, his voice cracking. I didn't know how else to handle it. I'm sorry I did it like this, but I couldn't let it go any further. The room was thick with unspoken accusations and fear. The air was heavy, and the silence was deafening. We sat there, the bouquet of flowers a sad testament to the innocence we had lost. Chris found his voice first. Why didn't you tell us sooner? He demanded, his voice low and tight. What are we supposed to do with this? Tyler looked at me, then back at Chris. I didn't know who else to trust, he said softly. I just wanted to keep you safe. The words hung in the air, a stark contrast to the tension that had been building between us. We were all in this together now, whether we liked it or not. The question was, what would we do next? We sat for what felt like hours, the flowers wilting slowly on the coffee table, a symbol of the fragility of our trust. The truth had been laid bare, and now we had to decide if we could pick up the pieces and move forward or if this was the end of everything we had built together. Chris's hand was still in mine, a silent promise that we would face this as a team. But the doubt lingered, a sour taste in my mouth. Could we really come back from this? Could our marriage, our family, withstand the weight of such a dark secret? The clock ticked on, each second feeling like a minute. Finally, I took a deep breath and turned to Tyler. We'll deal with this, I said, my voice firm. But from now on, no more secrets. We're in this together. He nodded, his eyes brimming with relief. I promise, he murmured. I'm so sorry. The evening stretched ahead of us, a tapestry of uncertainty and fear. But in that moment, as we faced the storm together, I realized that maybe, just maybe, we had the strength to weather it. As the three of us sat there, the house that had once been a bastion of comfort now felt like a prison. The walls held secrets, the floorboards echoed with the weight of our silence, and the air was thick with unspoken words. But amidst the chaos, I knew one thing for sure: our lives would never be the same again. The next few days were a blur of tense conversations, late-night searches for answers, and an unspoken understanding that we were all in this together. Tyler had moved into the spare room, his presence a constant reminder of the storm we were navigating. We watched the video over and over again, trying to make sense of the cryptic messages and shaky footage that painted a picture of our father-in-law that was as unrecognizable as it was terrifying. Chris was torn, his loyalty to his brother and his love for me pulling him in two directions. We had decided to keep the USB and its contents a secret from the rest of the family, at least until we figured out what it all meant. The flowers Tyler had brought now lay in a sad, wilted heap on the counter, a stark contrast to the vivid bouquet they once were. They served as a poignant reminder of the fragility of our trust and the desperate attempt to fix what was broken. The air in the house was thick with the weight of our secret, the silence a deafening backdrop to our hushed discussions. We pored over bank statements and old letters, piecing together a puzzle that grew more disturbing with every new piece we found. The evidence was damning, and we knew we couldn't ignore it, but we also knew that confronting the family would mean opening a Pandora's box that could never be closed again. One evening, after a particularly heated argument about what to do with the information, we sat in the living room, the tension palpable. Chris held me tight, his eyes filled with a mix of anger and fear. I don't know what to do, he whispered into my hair. This could ruin everything. I leaned into him, my heart aching for the pain he was in. We'll get through this, I assured him, though my own voice was shaky. We'll do whatever it takes to protect our family. The following day, we decided to take a step back from the chaos and go for a walk around the neighborhood, hoping the fresh air would help clear our minds. The leaves crunched under our feet, the cool breeze carrying whispers of secrets that seemed to follow us wherever we went. As we rounded the corner, we saw a car parked in front of our house, its engine idling. A sense of foreboding washed over me, and I grabbed Chris's arm. The driver's side door opened, and a man in a black suit stepped out. I think we need to get inside, I murmured, my eyes locked on the stranger. Chris nodded, his grip on my hand tightening as we quickened our pace. We could see Tyler through the living room window, pacing back and forth, his face a mask of panic. The man in the suit was walking towards the house, a look of determination etched into his features. We burst through the door, and Tyler whirled around, his eyes wild. They found me, he gasped. They know. The man in the suit followed us in, closing the door with a soft click that echoed through the house. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, he said, his voice cold and professional. We need to talk. The room grew smaller as the reality of the situation crashed down upon us. The secret was out, and now we had to face the consequences of what that meant. The walls that had once felt like a shelter now felt like they were closing in, trapping us with the very thing we had feared the most. Our lives had changed in an instant, and there was no going back. The only way out was through the storm, together. We braced ourselves for whatever was to come, ready to fight for the truth and each other. The battle lines were drawn, and we were about to enter the most dangerous chapter of our lives. The USB had become a beacon of hope and fear, holding the power to either save or destroy our family. The cryptic message from my father-in-law spoke of a hidden truth that had the potential to shake the very core of our existence. It was a quest we never asked for, but one we couldn't ignore. As the man in the black suit sat across from us, laying out the grim details of our father-in-law's past, I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of anger and pity. The man we thought we knew had been living a double life, and now we were caught in the crossfire. The evidence was clear. We were up against a powerful adversary who would stop at nothing to keep the truth buried. The quest ahead was perilous, filled with twists and turns that would test our love and loyalty to the breaking point. Every step we took brought us closer to the heart of the mystery, but also closer to the edge of a cliff that threatened to swallow us whole. We had to be careful, calculated, and ready for anything. The first clue led us to an old, abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. The building loomed in the darkness, a relic of a bygone era, whispering secrets that had been buried for too long. As we approached, my heart pounded in my chest, and I tightened my grip on Chris's hand. The door creaked open, and the smell of dust and decay wafted out. Inside, we found a treasure trove of documents and artifacts that painted a picture of a man we had never known. It was a tale of greed, betrayal, and a desperate attempt to maintain a facade of respectability. As we sifted through the evidence, we discovered that the keys in the box were to a safety deposit box at a nearby bank. The contents, we hoped, would be the final piece of the puzzle, the one that would help us understand the depth of the deception that had been played on us. The journey to the bank was fraught with tension. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat. Every car that drove by could be the enemy coming to silence us. But we pushed forward, driven by the need to know the truth. When we finally unlocked the safety deposit box, we found a single envelope, addressed to us. Inside was a letter from my father-in-law, confessing his sins and explaining the lengths he had gone to protect us. The burden of his guilt had become too much to bear, and he had left us the USB as a means to right his wrongs. The letter was a confession of love, wrapped in a plea for forgiveness. It was a stark contrast to the cold, calculated man we had seen in the video. The weight of his words hung in the air, a testament to the complexities of human nature and the lengths we'll go for those we care about. The adversary we faced was more than just a shadowy figure. It was the very fabric of our lives unraveling before our eyes. We had to decide if we could forgive the man we thought we knew, and if we were willing to risk everything to protect what we had built together. The choice was ours, and it wasn't going to be an easy one. But as we left the bank, hand in hand, I knew that no matter what we faced, we would stand together. The truth was out, and we were ready to confront it. Our love was our shield, our loyalty our sword, and together, we would conquer the darkness that had invaded our lives. The story continues, each new chapter revealing more secrets and challenges. But through it all, we remained a united front, ready to face whatever the world threw at us. The quest to uncover the truth had begun, and we were determined to see it through to the end, no matter the cost. But just when we thought we had the upper hand, a new player entered the game. A mysterious woman, with the same piercing eyes as my father-in-law, showed up at our doorstep one evening. She introduced herself as Rachel, Tyler, and Chris's long-lost sister. Her arrival was like a bomb going off in the already chaotic landscape of our lives. "I know about the fortune," she said, her voice a soft purr that sent chills down my spine, "and I know you're looking for it." We stared at her in shock, the room suddenly feeling much smaller. How did she know? What did she want? It turned out Rachel had been following Tyler's trail of breadcrumbs, hoping to claim a piece of the inheritance she believed was rightfully hers. She had a plan, a way to find the hidden wealth that had eluded us, and she wasn't about to let us stand in her way. But her price was high. She would only help if we agreed to keep her involvement a secret from the rest of the family. Her terms were clear. She would help us expose the truth, but in return, she wanted her fair share of the fortune. And she had a secret of her own, one that could blow our lives apart if it ever saw the light of day. Chris and I exchanged a tense look, weighing the risks. Could we trust her? Would she really keep her word? But the allure of finally uncovering the truth was too strong to resist. We agreed, setting in motion a dangerous dance of deception and greed that would test the very limits of our relationship and our integrity. With Rachel's guidance, we delved deeper into the murky waters of our father-in-law's past. We discovered a web of lies and deceit that stretched back generations, each thread leading to more heartache and betrayal. The man we thought we knew had built an empire on a foundation of sand, and it was up to us to decide if we were going to let it crumble or try to rebuild it. As we followed her lead, the walls of our home grew more oppressive, the air thick with suspicion and doubt. Every conversation was a minefield, every gesture a potential clue. We were walking a tightrope, balancing the need for answers with the fear of what we might find. And all the while, Rachel watched us, her eyes gleaming with a hunger that was both terrifying and fascinating. She was a chameleon, shifting her allegiances as the situation demanded, playing us like pawns in a game she had been planning for years. We found ourselves in a race against time, desperately searching for the truth before it found us. The tension grew with each passing day, the air in the house thick with the scent of secrets and the taste of fear. The woman we had taken into our home had become our greatest ally and our most dangerous threat. But in the end, it was Rachel who would show us the true cost of our quest. She had her own agenda, her own demons to face. And as the walls of deception crumbled around us, we realized that the biggest secret of all was the one we had been keeping from each other. The day of reckoning had arrived, and we had to decide, would we stand together, united against the storm? Or would we let the darkness of the past consume us? The final confrontation came in the form of a family dinner, the kind that could either mend bridges or burn them to the ground. Rachel sat at the table, her eyes flicking between Tyler and me, a smug smile playing on her lips. She knew she had the upper hand, that she could shatter our world with a single word. But we had prepared for this moment, had gathered our own arsenal of secrets and revelations. We had come too far to let her win, to let the lies win. As the plates grew cold and the tension grew thick, Rachel made her move. She laid out her demands, her voice echoing through the tense silence. But we had a surprise for her. Chris slammed his hand down on the table, his eyes flashing with anger and determination. "We're done with secrets," he said, his voice firm. "We're going to tell the family everything, and then we're going to deal with this, together." The room erupted into chaos, accusations flying like shrapnel. Rachel's smug smile faltered for the first time, realizing she had underestimated us. She had played us, but now the tables were turning. The brothers exchanged a look, the unspoken bond between them stronger than ever. The air was electric with the promise of a battle to come. Chris's words had set the stage for a confrontation that would define our family forever. Rachel's eyes narrowed, her grip on the table tightening. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed. But we weren't bluffing. We had gathered evidence of her manipulations, her threats, and her true intentions. We had recorded her confessions, and we weren't afraid to use them. The dinner plates rattled as we laid our cards on the table, each one revealing a piece of the twisted game she had played. The standoff was palpable, the silence a scream of accusations. Rachel's eyes darted around the room, looking for an escape or an ally. But she was alone, her schemes laid bare for all to see. "We know what you are," Tyler said, his voice cold and hard, "and we're not going to let you get away with it." The family members looked at each other, the weight of the situation settling heavily on their shoulders. They had to choose, stand with Rachel and the promise of wealth and power, or stand with Chris and me, for the sake of truth and family. The tension grew until it was a living thing in the room, a creature feeding on our fear and anger. Rachel's mask of innocence slipped, revealing the cunning strategist beneath. She tried to recover, to weave a new lie to sway their loyalties, but it was too late. Her voice grew shrill as she realized the game was up. "You don't know what you're doing," she spat. "You're just pawns in a game you can't even begin to understand." Chris stepped forward, his fists clenched at his sides. "We're not pawns," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "We're a family." The words hung in the air, a declaration of war. Rachel's eyes widened in shock, and for a moment, she looked genuinely afraid. But fear was a currency she was familiar with, and she had one final card to play. "You think you're so righteous," she sneered. "But what if I told you that the fortune isn't just about money?" She pulled out a photo, slapped it on the table. It was a picture of a young woman, a woman with Rachel's eyes and Chris's chin. "What if I told you that this woman, your mother, knew all about it?" The room went still, the air thick with the promise of a revelation that could change everything. The photo was a bomb, a weapon that Rachel had been holding in reserve, and now she had detonated it in the heart of our family. Chris's hand trembled as he reached for the photo, his eyes locked on Rachel's face. "What are you talking about?" he demanded. Rachel leaned back in her chair, a twisted smile playing on her lips. "Oh, you'll find out," she said, her eyes gleaming with malice. "You'll find out soon enough." The next few moments were a blur of accusations and recriminations. The family was torn apart, the fabric of our lives shredded by Rachel.